Matt Brown, College League Manager for SB Nation, joining us on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline. Matt, welcome to BYU Sports Nation.
Well, thank you for having me, gentlemen. It's good to be here.
It's always good to collaborate with somebody in Big Ten country. And speaking of the Big Ten and Jim Delaney, the commissioner, who apparently has flip-flopped on this whole situation, what's the latest on the proposal and the sidebar conversations about this vote?
Sure. So the latest update now, a couple of days ago, we had reported that the Big Ten would be likely to alter their proposal. If you've been following along, the Big 12 and the ACC originally had a proposal to call for the complete deregulation of requirements to hold a championship game. So right now you have to have 12 teams, you have to have two divisions. The Big 12 and the ACC would like to have no restrictions. And the Big Ten initially proposed saying, we don't care how many teams you have, but we want you to have divisions. And then after consulting with leaders at other conferences, the Big 12 issued another proposal saying, well, it might be okay to have a conference championship game without divisions if you have a full round-robin schedule, basically what the Big 12 has right now. The Big 12, Bob Bowlesby had said that he was optimistic that everybody would be able to reach some kind of compromise, so the Big 12 is not forced to expand or change their alignment, and it appears right now that is the most likely outcome.
So what kind of conversations and deals do you think are going down right now from the Big 12 to make sure that this passes and they can get what they want?
That's, I'm not sure that they're 100% certain that things are going to be that are going to go their way. There's going to be a lot of leaning, I think, particularly on some of these Group of Five conferences that might have a little bit different motivations for which way they're going to be leaning here than maybe the Big Ten or the Pac-12. My understanding is that the SEC is planning on voting against both proposals. So no matter what happens, I think this is going to be a close vote that does not reach supermajority status. So it's possible that this conversation, as much as I think BYU fans may not want to hear about this, could even get dragged into March.
There will be 15 votes. Each Power 5 conference is given a 2-point vote, if you will, and the Group of 5 conferences each have a vote worth 1 point. So if you were to give a projection on how this vote will play out numerically, Matt, what would it be?
So my understanding is that the Big 12's proposal for complete deregulation is probably going to fail with 9 or 10 votes going against them. Somewhere, so far below the 13 supermajority mark, but somewhere, a little bit below that. The Big Ten's proposal, as of right now, I believe is expected to pass with a slightly different margin, one or two votes less. So it should be really close. It could change, but that's not what I'm expecting.
You mentioned that this could get dragged out to March. What kind of meetings are in March, or what would happen if this does get dragged out to March?
That's a good question, because this is a different kind of NCAA legislative proposal that we've had before. Now that we're in kind of a post-autonomy world, there's additional votes scheduled here for April. Well, I believe the way that this works is that a team could decide to rescind their vote or change their vote before things become solidified in March. And whether there's another formal gathering involved with that, I think I'd have to probably talk to some of the parliamentary people who are in charge of the NCAA, because it really is kind of a complicated and Byzantine sort of process.
Matt, you're in some high circles if you're talking with Parliament in the Power 5 conference. We need to get into those circles.
You should see the wig Jim Delaney wears.
Oh, my goodness. I don't want anything to do with that.
Matt Brown, College League Manager for SB Nation, with us on BYU Sports Nation. I view this whole thing as short-sighted by the Big 12. I know they see big dollar signs right now, being able to host their own conference championship game with only 10 teams and have that increased revenue without having to expand. But it just seems short-sighted, because why would the Big 12 not be the conference that any other conference wants to poach from if we do indeed go to mega conferences of 16 teams?
That's an interesting question. And I think that a lot of the assumptions that we've kind of made or had built in about the direction that we think conferences are going to go from a couple of years ago, things may not go that way, because we're already seeing some pretty big changes within the television industry. So it would seem like an inevitable, constantly increasing amount of money might not be the case. I mean, like the first renewed television deal that's coming up now for Conference USA is reported to be worth far less than their last TV deal. And so it's certainly possible that we won't have the same forces to make everybody keep growing and growing. Whether expanding is something that would help make this a little bit more of a secure and stable conference, I think that's a conversation that's going to continue to be had within the Big 12 regardless of this vote.
And if it made sense, they probably already would have done it. But do you see the Big 12 expanding outside of being forced to?
I don't see the Big 12 making an expansion decision within the next 1 to 3 years. But even if they're not forced to, they still have to reconcile the fact that you have one of the president of the second most powerful university in the conference, Oklahoma, openly saying, "I think we should expand." You still have to deal with the fact that you have West Virginia, who's been a good conference partner, still out there on an island, and their university president has said, "We would like somebody in our time zone, or somebody that's a little bit closer to us." So I know that there are people within that conference who would like to do it. I think they want to do it on their timetable. They don't want to be rushed into it, but I don't think that that's completely impossible before the next grant of rights changes happen.
You bring up David Boren, the president at Oklahoma, who does have a loud voice within the regions of that conference. With that internal pressure, what happens first? The Big 12 expands or any other Power 5 conference expands?
I would be really surprised if any other Power 5 conference expanded before this round of television contracts ends. And that isn't to say that there aren't Power 5 conferences that would potentially be interested in Big 12 teams. Certainly, I think the SEC and the Big 10 would love to have Oklahoma. The Big 10, I think, would certainly be really interested in Kansas, given their academic profile and their basketball history. There's a couple other schools that would be attractive. But there's not really a huge incentive to try and change things now, since we don't know what the television industry is going to look like. You don't know if you want to add that level of instability within your organizational structure, especially since a couple of these conferences already recently expanded. So I think there's just going to be a more wait-and-see attitude from a lot of these larger conferences over the next couple of years while we better understand the financial pictures. If you're looking to see expansion in the near term, I think that's way more likely to happen with some of these smaller conferences.
Matt, when you look at BYU, which will happen first? This is our Twitter question today. Which will happen first, BYU to a New Year's Six game or to a Power 5 conference? What do you think?
And that's a tough question. And I don't mean to be mean, but I don't think either of them are really happening within the next 5 years. This is just kind of my gut. I really think eventually, when all this smoke settles and everything, I really do think BYU is going to end up in a bigger conference, and it would be hard for me to see them making a New Year's Six bowl under the current, the way things are laid out in the near future. So I guess I'll go with that. I guess I'll go with them getting a conference promotion. Okay.
Best case scenario for BYU. When do you see them in a Power 5 conference in your own personal timeline?
And my guess. I mean, once we're getting into the after 5, 6, 7 years when these TV rights agreements change, the whole college football world, I think, is going to look a lot different than where we are right now. So it would not surprise me, in that timeline, if the Big 12 changes and BYU becomes a more attractive property, and the things that make BYU really interesting and enticing to a conference are more attractive than they are maybe right now. So not in the near future, but beyond that, I wouldn't say it's impossible.
Matt Brown, College League Manager for SB Nation, with us on BYU Sports Nation. Matt, when and where can we find your next article or blog on this very current situation?
Sure. So my thinking here is that after all of the voting here is done, there's going to be some kind of explainer that's going to be on SBNation.com under college football, either today or tomorrow, and probably something a little bit more BYU specific on our BYU specific site, Vanquish the Foe, by the end of the week. That's the plan. Follow him
at MattSBN. Matt, been a pleasure to have you. We appreciate the insight into a very complicated situation.
Likewise, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure.